Hello there. So as always, I gotta show you my journal and remind you guys, like if you like journaling, journaling is awesome for your mental health. It has some amazing benefits. You know, you can brain dump, you can do forgiving and everything. But now I have this setup that has worked for me for the past 3 or 4 years, and now I have it on a cute journal. And it's like the three things that are important to you, something that you're grateful for, something that you're proud of, something that you dream of, and something that you pray for. So you have it all in one page. So if you check it out, it's going to be in the show notes. You can find it on Amazon. So, and more journals to come. Now, let's get the show started. Hello, and welcome to Life with Francy podcast, a place where you will find all kinds of conversations like mental health, self love, self care, trauma, hobbies, and more. With this podcast, I want to create a place where we support one another in business and personal life. Hope you enjoy this episode. Now, let's get the show started. On today's episode, I have the pleasure to talk to Dave Albin, who is the #1 Firewalk instructor in America. Firewalking is a 1,000-year-old ritual of passage of rite of ritual where you literally walk across hot burning coals. His success has a scary and violent past. On June 8th, 1988, he tried to end stop all of it from alcohol addiction and drug addiction. This year will mark 35 years of sobriety. This collaboration was thanks to Podmatch, an amazing community where people, podcast hosts and podcast guests get to make an amazing collaboration and have resources and tools to make everything exciting. So go and check it out. My link and the link of my guest will be in the show notes. Now let's welcome Dave Albin. Tell us, what
Hey,
is life with you?
hey, Francy, that was amazing. Hey, I want to first of all, I want to say something about the journaling. Man, I hope your listeners take you up on that because journaling is massive. It's such a wonderful thing to do. It gives you such great clarity. You can go back in your life, and if your family ever wants to see about you and who you are, I support journaling. I've been doing it for years and years. So kudos to you for offering a really sweet book to be able to do that. So
Thank you.
yeah, my pleasure. Absolutely. Yeah, it's really important. It works. Wow. How do you become the #1 Firewalk instructor in the country, right? It's like, I don't know. It's like, it's not like you go to college and you go, oh, that's what I want to do. I want to be that. I want to be a Firewalk instructor. Most of my career, as far as the firewalking goes, Francie, came from a painful past. I was grossly addicted to drugs and alcohol at one moment of my life, and had been using since I was young. I literally took my first drink of alcohol at 11 years old, and I did that right after my parents told me they weren't my parents, and they both started drinking. So I saw them drinking. Monkey see, monkey do, and that's what happened. And I never had a chance. I swear, the first time I drank brandy, 11 years old. I poured it into a coffee cup, drank the whole thing. And I don't know, it was like pouring rocket fuel. And so my life changed. Really, it took a really hard turn there when I was 11 years old. And on June 8th, as you read, in 1988, I woke up that morning. I said, that's it. I'm done. We're not doing this anymore. I can tell you that. I was in such excruciating pain. The emotional pain, the physical pain, the spiritual pain. And I said, I can't do this anymore. And the only thought I really had in that moment was, you're going to have to end your life because this isn't going to just go away. The only way you're going to stop this pain is to end your life. Well, I was married to a woman who had 3 kids, and I loved those kids, and they were my stepkids. And I remember thinking, man, you can't do that. If you take your own life here, they're the ones that are going to suffer. You're killing them too, right? Because you know what I mean? All the mess that's going to cause, and the police are coming, and the paramedics and the morgue, and I was like, no, man, you can't do that. You've got to figure out another way. Well, the next thing I know, the thought in my head was, call Alcoholics Anonymous. but that's really bizarre. And I say that because I didn't know who AA was. I had no references at all for Alcoholics Anonymous. I didn't know anybody that was in it. I'd never been to a meeting. I really knew nothing about it, yet there was the thought. So I did. I called up, I got a hold of the inner group, I called them, and I got this wonderful lady on the phone. And I affectionately nicknamed her Madge. And the reason is she talked like this. She probably smoked, I don't know, 2 packs of Pall Mall non-filters a day. So her throat was real raspy. Well, I owe my life to that woman because she's the gatekeeper. She's the one who decided whether you're bad enough, they'll send somebody to come pick you up and take you to a meeting. And so she did. And I went to that first meeting on June 8th. And the guy that took me and came pick me up, his name was Lauren. And he stayed with me for 4 meetings that day. I went to a 12:30, a 4:30, a 6:30, and an 8:30. And that was it. I was in. And the next thing I know, a day turned into a week turned into a month, and they gave me a little medallion. And it said 1 month of continuous sobriety. Then they gave me one at 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and 1 year. Well, at the time when I'm getting sober, right, I had insomnia. So I was up late at night all the time. My sleep patterns were all over the place. And one night I'm up late, 3 o'clock in the morning, 1988. And there he is, Mr. Motivation himself, Tony Robbins, selling his personal power program through Gunther Ranker. And man, he just it was like the perfect timing for me. He said a couple of things that really, really got me. One of them, he said, we'll do more to avoid pain than we will to gain pleasure. And remember, I'm watching this infomercial and I thought, wow, I'm in a lot of pain. Pay attention here. And then he said something that really got me. And he said that the driving force in our life, the reason we make most decisions is out of inspiration or desperation. And man, that hit me like a ton of bricks. Because I had been using, right? I was grossly addicted to heroin, cocaine, alcohol. And I was drinking to either avoid pain or try to gain some pleasure. And it wasn't doing any of that. You know, I was years past it ever bringing me any, the illusion of any pleasure whatsoever. And so I bought his program and they sent it to me. And it was a month-long program. It was called Personal Power. And I jokingly say it came on these little white things called cassette tapes.
Oh my God.
Right? Some of your listeners are going to go, what's a cassette tape? Right? Well, if you ever go to the Smithsonian, you'll see them there. So there it was, man. I plugged it in, Francy, and I went through it and I did what the man taught me to do, and it worked. Well, years later, 7 years later, another buddy of mine who got into Tony called me on the phone 7 years later. And he called me and said, hey, man, did you know that Tony Robbins is coming to town live for an event? I said, no, I had no clue. And he goes, dude, you want to go, right? I said, sure, let's go. He said, great, I'll call you back. Well, heck, he calls me back an hour later, goes, done. We pick up the tickets at will call. And here's what they told us to do to prep for this thing. Number 1, drink a lot of water, stay really hydrated. Number 2, bring snacks, because you're going to spend a lot of time in the room.
That's smart.
What an understatement that was, right? He said, bring a great attitude and be ready to play full out. I said, Dan, how much was the ticket? He said, $695. And I went, $700? He goes, yeah, don't worry, you can pay me back. And that was in what, 1995? I don't know what that equates to today. 7 million? I don't know.
Yeah.
It was a lot, right? 7,000? I don't know. So anyway, and just as he's getting ready to hang up the phone, he goes, oh, wait, I forgot to tell you something. We're going to be doing a firewalk. And I was like, what?
Firewalk.
Yeah. And I'm not saying anything, but my brain is going, no, hell no, ain't going to happen. Don't even think about it. You're out of your mind. And you know what's funny about that? I didn't know what a firewalk was. I had no reference for that. Did nothing. But because I'm allowing fear to control my life, like a lot of us do, right? Until we learn to break through them, I was missing out on something that I didn't even know what it was, but I was saying no to it. But I lied to my buddy. I'm like, oh yeah, sure, Dan, Firewalk. Yeah, all right, see you then. Boom, hung up the phone, went, no, hard no, ain't gonna do it. Well, the day comes for the event. We get there, we're sitting in our seats, 3,500 people at this event. And Tony takes the stage at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Well, the next thing I know, it's after midnight. We've been in a room with Tony Robbins for 10 hours. You know, back to the bring snacks. You're going to spend a lot of time in the room. I felt like I was going to starve to death. And all of a sudden it's after midnight and Tony says, take your shoes off. And I'm like, oh no. Oh, no. I see where you're going with this, pal. I'm not taking my shoes off, right? And then, but now I got a dilemma because I'm sitting there and guess what? I got 3,500 people around me. Guess what they're doing? They're taking their shoes off. So now if I don't take my shoes off and I go out there with all these people, guess what? They're going to go, oh, look at, there's a guy. Look at him. Yeah. And he didn't take his shoes off, coward. Well, I can't have any of that, right? So I'm like, yeah, okay, just take your shoes off. You still don't have to walk. When you get out there, just go hide in the back. No one's going to know, right? So it gets worse. So the next thing you know is he's got everybody after their shoes are off. He gets them to start chanting and clapping. So they're like going, yes, yes, yes. And now you got 3,500 people chanting. Pretty intense. Well, once you get outside, right, it gets even worse because he's got African drummers. So now it's bum, 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 bum. Yes, yes, 3,500 people. And I'm walking out there going, you've got to be kidding me. What a dog and pony show this is. So I just go all the way to the back, right? Because again, nobody's going to know. I'll just hide out back here. Well, Tony Robbins knows that this is one of the most life-changing paradigm shift experiences available. There's nothing that I know of that will change someone's life quicker and faster than a firewalk. And he knows that. So he also knows people are going to hide in the back. So what's he do? He trains people to come find you. So there I am. I'm back there all by myself. And here comes this guy out of nowhere. All of a sudden, he makes eye contact with me. And he won't stop looking at me. I think Tony obviously trains them. Once you make eye contact with these people, don't take your eyes off them. Well, he gets about 20 feet from me. Now, remember, at this point, the drums are playing. People are chanting, yes. They've already started firewalking. They're screaming and yelling and celebrating. I mean, it's unlike anything you can imagine. And now this guy's staring at me. And he kind of got about 20 feet from me. And he kind of twists his head and he looks at me with this funny look on his face. And he goes, are you okay? And when we're not okay, what do we say? Oh, I'm fine. Yeah, all good here, man. Yeah, no worries, man. Move along, pal. There's nothing to see here. And he says, hey, man, are you going to walk tonight? And I said, absolutely not. And I said it with a tone like that, like to send him the message, no, man, that ain't going to happen. And he was really cool about it, right? He goes, yeah, hey, man, that's no problem. That's all good. We don't want you to do anything you don't want to do. And I thought, wow, okay, he's going to get me out of here. Well, then he changed my life with one question. One stranger, one question. Don't know who this guy is to this day, right? Because if I just don't know. But without him, guess what? I'm not on the Life with Francy podcast today. I can tell you that, right? And so he says, well, wouldn't you at least like to watch? And I thought for a minute, yeah, that should be fun. Let's do that. Let's go watch these people burn their feet off. Yeah, let's do that. And he said, well, hey, man, you can't see anything from back here. Now I'm 100 yards away. He's right. I can't see anything. So he said, well, just get in line and eventually you'll get up there close enough. You'll be able to actually see it. So in his defense, he's telling the truth because I can't see anything 100 yards away. And when you get out there, by the way, Francy, over in the corner, there's this giant fire. It is huge. It's like 30 feet wide and it's probably every bit 70 feet long. Well, they've been burning it all day and just keep adding wood and adding wood and adding wood all day long. And eventually at night, it renders. And now you've got this big, giant, beautiful pile of coals. And so logistically, how they set this up is they take a wheelbarrow over to that pit and they load it. And then they take that wheelbarrow and they pull it in the middle of 2 lanes of sod, a fire lane. And a lane is about 3 feet wide, 18 feet long. And what they would do, they just take a flathead shovel and they would sprinkle those coals on top of that grass on the sod. And that's what you walked on. Well, so now I'm in line, right? And I'm kind of walking along and I'm walking along and I'm listening and people are screaming and yelling and celebrating. I mean, again, it is intense. And all of a sudden this guy comes up and he whispers in my ear and he says, he knows when you're ready. When he says, go, you go. And pew, this guy just disappeared into the night. And I'm like, what was that? Who was that? What was that about? Right? So, you know, the intensity it's just insane. Well, all of a sudden I get to a point. I can't see in front of me. I got hundreds of people in front of me. But all of a sudden I get to a point and I can see at an angle. And guess what? They're doing it. And I'm watching it. I'm seeing them doing it. And it's every race, every creed, every color, every age. Francy, they are walking on fire. And so now I'm in just total awe and total disbelief. I mean, I'm in a trance. I can't take my eyes off it. It's kind of like, you know, when you go by a car accident, you know, you don't look at, you're not supposed to look at it yet, but yet we stare at it, right? Can't take your eyes off it. Same thing here. I just can't take my eyes off watching these people firewalking. And I'm walking along and I'm walking along and all of a sudden, boom, guess where I am? I'm at the front of the line. And now I'm staring down into the abyss. I'm looking at that fire lane, right? It's 3 feet wide, 18 feet long, and the coals on top are glowing bright red. And I feel like my heart's getting ready to pound out of my chest. I can feel the heat coming off the wheelbarrow. So you can feel it, see it, smell it. People are chanting, yes, the drums are going. People are celebrating. I'm like, it's just really hard to describe and explain. Well, I'm staring down into the abyss, right? Well, there's a trainer standing there. And all of a sudden the trainer goes, eyes up. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right. Well, guess what? I was in a room for 10 hours with Tony Robbins. Guess what he teaches you to do? Keep your eyes up, right? Don't stare at what you fear. Look to the celebration end, to the end of the fire lane. Focus on that. And so now my eyes are up and the trainer goes, squeeze your fist and say yes. And I went, yes. And he went, stronger. And I went, yes. Well, the trainer could tell I was not in a peak state. I was leaving a lot on the table, right? And all of a sudden he screamed at me and he went, stronger. Well, now it's fight or flight, right? I threw my hands in the air and I screamed at the top of my lungs, yes. And he goes, go, go, go. Pew. I took off. Well, here's the first thing I learned about Firewalking. When you take the first step, oh, I'll guarantee you'll take the second, third, fourth, and fifth, right? You don't stop standing on that fire lane. Yep. But what they do, he positions 2 people at the end of the fire lane and they grip hands like this to stop you. So when I got to them, they're like, stop, wipe your feet and celebrate. And so now I'm wiping my feet and I'm kind of celebrating and I'm looking back and the coals are glowing bright red. And all of a sudden, boom, now I can feel it. Oh man, I burnt myself really, really bad. All of a sudden, so I look at my foot and it's dirty, but there's no burns. Oh, it's my other foot. I look at it, it's dirty, but there's no burns. And now I'm like, okay, I just walked across coals that were 1,000 degrees and I did not burn myself. And here's what's interesting. I had no clue how I did it. None. Zero. Ever done something really cool, right? You go out there and you do something and you do it and you don't know how you did it, but all you're doing is going, that's right. That was this guy right here. He did it, right? Well, that's what I'm feeling. But now I'm standing down there with hundreds and hundreds of people who are celebrating. They're jumping up and down and they're just having a grand time. And you feel exhilarating. It's exhilarating. I mean, you feel like you could accomplish anything. And so it's a really, really magical moment, the moment you complete your firewalk. Well, here's where it gets really, really interesting. The next day, this is a 4-day event, right? That was day one. That night of day one, we did the firewalk. So now we're going into day 2, right? We got 3 more days of this. And so now we're all that morning, we're all in the foyer and we're getting ready to go into the venue, 3,500 people. And I'd never seen or witnessed anything like it in my life. People were laughing, they were crying, they were talking, they were communicating, they were hugging. I mean, and so I'm kind of like thinking, so what happened last night? Did we drink the Kool-Aid? Is this why everybody's, getting along so well humanistically? Because our self-worth, our self-confidence, and our self-belief had been risen together collectively. So we're like all vibing at the same level, right? And it was beautiful. It was absolutely gorgeous. And again, I've never seen anything like this with a group of people come together that quickly. And it was just magical. Well, the next day, and really that's what got me, right? When I saw how everybody had been affected by the Firewalk the next day, I'm like, okay, what's going on here? This is really powerful. Well, the next day I met one of Tony's trainers, and Ted Macy, great guy. I love him. Him and his wife, Mary, they're both trainers. And so I'm talking to Ted and we're having a great conversation. And I said, hey man, this must be incredible to be around this on a regular basis. And he said, oh yeah, are you kidding me? To be around all this positivity and all these people's lives are changing. It's a beautiful thing to be around. And he says, as a matter of fact, you see all those people over there with the black shirts? And I said, black and pink shirts? I said, yeah. And he goes, they're all volunteers. There's over 300 of them here. They come back. They've attended and they're coming back because they want to be in the environment. And he said, so if you think you'd like to do that, when you get home, call Robbins Research in San Diego, tell them you'd like an application for a volunteer crew member. They'll send you one. Well, I did. They sent me one. I filled it out. I sent it back. 7 weeks later, I get a letter in the mail. And it said, Dave Albin, congratulations. You've been selected to crew with the Anthony Robbins companies in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Well, there I was. I'm in the door. Well, things escalated from there pretty quickly because on the application, I put down, number one, that I had a security background and that I was in the military. So they immediately pulled me out to help take care of Tony's celebrities. So that was interesting. And then also because I lived on a farm and I knew how to use a lot of tools, log splitters, knew how to use equipment, they put me outside on the fire building team, which is exactly what I wanted. Well, that was in 95, 96. Next thing you know, in in 96, they offered me a subcontractor's position. When you're a volunteer, bear in mind, you have to pay your way, right? You have to pay your airfare, right? You have to pay your airfare. It's like any other volunteer you'd ever do. You got to pay your way, right? Pay your airfare, you pay for your hotel, your food, all that. Well, when they hired me as a subcontractor, they paid for all that. So instead of spending, $2,000 a month, it was all getting paid for. Well, that was in 95, 96. In 2003, Tony offered me the fire captain position. What does that mean? That means it was my job to take care of all of Tony Robbins' firewalks globally. And because I homeschooled my kids, he paid for my family to travel with me, which was, imagine being homeschooled and you take your kids and the first event, right, you do is in Sydney, Australia.
Wow.
So my kids, the first time they walked, I get asked this all the time. My daughter was 6 and my son was 9. The first time they firewalked. And so that was in 2003. In 2005, we went to London and we firewalked 12,300 people. So that was a world record. Now I want to be clear about something. Guinness was not there. Guinness Book of World Record was not there. They weren't invited. But to my knowledge, no one's ever firewalked 12,300 people, nothing even close to it. In fact, the closest firewalk to ever been that large is another Tony Robbins seminar at 11,000, 10,000, 9,000, 8,000. So that all happened in 95. Well, in 2014, it gets pretty interesting again. I'm driving down the road and the next thing I know, I'm getting a call from Google. And Google wants to know if I'm the Dave Albin that does the firewalks for Tony Robbins. Well, yeah, what can I do for you? I said, well, if you're not under any non-compete and have any contractual obligation, we'd like to talk to you about hiring you for us for a gig that we're going to be having here at the corporate headquarters for 148 of our executives. And I'm like, okay, well, what's the date? Yeah, I can do that. what's your budget? They're like, this. And I went, I can work with you guys. And so when they started talking Firewalk, the graduation was in the middle of the day at like 2:30 in the afternoon. I said, guys, we can't do a Firewalk in the middle of the day. It's a safety issue. I'm sorry, but I don't do it, period. I've got to be able to see those coals at night. I need to be able to see the color of them. And I can't do that in the middle of the day. So too risky, can't do it. However, we could do a glass walk. And they said, a what? A glass walk. This is where I'll show those executives how to walk on broken glass. They said, well, that's interesting. Tell us about that. And so that's what we did. We ended up doing a glass walk. I did 2 of them for Google. And the next thing I know, Francy, guess what? I'm at NASA, Notre Dame, Virginia Tech, Remax, Chick-fil-A, Microsoft, Heineken, the YMCA, you name it. And all these companies started showing up. And so right after I did Google in 2014, I started Firewalk Productions. And the reason I did is because I had a conversation with one of the Google executives. They said, hey, I just want to share a little information with you, but you might want to think about starting your own company because there's nothing out there like this. This is one of the most transformational, life-changing experiences any company can hire you to do. And they said, so CEOs and business owners and entrepreneurs can hire you and bring you in and create these incredible life-changing paradigm shift experiences. And so I went, okay. So I retired from Tony in 2014, and Firewalk Productions has been going, no pun intended, but hot and heavy ever since.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So then you do that process in your company, or do you
Yes.
have a different system?
Well, I've changed it around. I do have a different system. One of the things that I do is I incorporate the board break and the Firewalk together. So I have a proprietary way of working the board break. And so basically, they break the board. It's a martial arts move. And then they take the board outside and they do the Firewalk, and then they come back and then they add the board to the fire. And then I also take them through a process where I get everybody's heart to calibrate, meaning that everybody's heart starts beating at the same time. So, and again, if the Firewalk's not logistically possible, we have several other experiences that we can do, including the glass walk, which, by the way, we set another world record with the glass walk in 2019 in Paris. Had a client over there. We glass walked over 1,500 people. So we have the arrow break, we have the rebar bend, the board break, and some other experiences as well. And so, yeah, whatever they want, day or night, we can make it happen. Another thing that I did last year, one of my dear friends who's an entrepreneur came to me and said, man, you ought to think about creating the Dave Albin Firewalk Academy. He said, because then companies can send people to you. Like if XYZ Corporation wants to send somebody, I train them. And I'm sorry, I don't know if you just heard that, but that's an F-18. They fly over my house all the time.
It was very, very small.
Did you hear it small? Yeah, they come from Fort Bragg, right? And they fly over my house all the time. Sometimes I think they're going to come through my living room window. Anyway, so I started the Dave Albin Firewalk Academy. And then again, that way business owners or entrepreneurs or corporations can send their people to us. If they're a life coach or a trainer, they come to me. I show them how to create all these amazing life-changing experiences, and then they graduate, and then they get to go back to their respective companies. And that's coming up in October. We only do 9 at a time, and there's a reason for that. We put them in 3 groups of 3. And we've got 6 positions that we've already been accounted for. So we've got 3 spots left. So at the end here, by the way, if any of your viewers get to the end, they go, wow, that might be something I want to check out. If they do that, I'll give them a code at the end of your show here. And that'll give them, for being on your show specifically today, that will give them a nice discount, again, for being on your show today.
Nice. And I have heard of the Firewalk because I have seen Tony Robbins thing, and I know that that's something huge that he does. But
Yeah.
like, why is it such a life-changing experience?
Well, that's a really great question. Uh, if we look back, again, the Firewalk itself has been around for hundreds of years. And, the Phoenicians, the people of India, the Indo-Europeans, the Polynesians, the Hawaiians, the Native American Indians, the people of Portugal, the people of Spain. I mean, they've been doing it. And it's a graduation, it's a rite of passage. It's a very spiritual connection. Um, and there's just something that happens out there, Francie. I don't pretend to have all the answers here about that. I just know that when I firewalked and I did it, I'd never felt like that in my life. Because it's not like jumping out of a plane or bungee jumping or water rafting or any of these kinds of things, or surfing or any of these things that I've done. There's just something about looking down and connecting with the fire and walking across and creating trust, because it works. And I've literally walked hundreds of thousands of people. I'll tell you where you can go watch it. That'll give you a great answer to your question. And that was Oprah's Firewalk in
Mm.
2010. Go Google it and watch it, and you'll see for yourself. Because before she firewalks, she's losing it. I'm telling you, man. She's like, she's all over the place. And Tony has to talk her through it. In fact, she gets to one point and Tony says to her, he says, Oprah, what's the worst that can happen? Burn your feet off and die? Come on. I'm not going to let you get hurt. And that was like she went click and she got it, right? What is the worst that could happen? What's the outcome? Could this change my life? And so the next thing you know, boom, she walks, right? Well, when she starts celebrating in the celebration side of it, she's going nuts. You'd think she, just accomplished the greatest thing in her life. And
Yeah,
she's
I can
acting
see
like it.
that though.
Oh yeah, you'll love it, man. It's fantastic. And so right after that, the cameras follow her and they're following over. And now she's standing with a fire in the back and she just goes, this is it, people. This is the next chapter. She said, because, we've been trained to walk away from fire. We're mammals. We're supposed to run from fire, right? And she goes, this is it, people. This is it. This is the next chapter. Well, that's when she made her decision. She made one of the biggest business decisions of her life within seconds of doing the Firewalk, where she created what's called now, I'm sure most of your listeners have heard of it, it's called the next chapter. And so, but that's what happens. You're in such a heightened state. You feel what it's like to be an Olympian. You feel what it's like to be a professional athlete. You feel what it's like to be a Navy SEAL. That it's just, it takes you to such a high frequency and level that, again, there's nothing like it. And so you can guarantee, and that's why I see, and Google understands that. That's why they wanted to bring me in, because they had 148 executives that they wanted to create a really powerful anchoring type experience. And that's why they reached out to me, because they knew it would work. And that's why CEOs hire us, because we come in and we, if there's stuff going on in the company, like there's a lot of dissension, right? Like maybe they're arguing about mask wearing or vaccines, or I love this president, I hate this president, I love Donald Trump, I hate Donald Trump, blah, 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 blah. That just rips people apart. And it did
Yeah.
rip them apart. We all know, we have family members, but if that happens in your company, and everybody's, fighting and not getting along because of all these bizarre beliefs about this or beliefs about that, guess what that does? Production goes boop. And so if you're a CEO, guess what your job is? Fix it.
Yeah.
Because if your people don't get along, they're not going to perform. They just won't. And that holds true on a sporting team. There's always a coach and the trainers, for the NFL and professional baseball and Olympians and all that. So that's why they hire me, because if they give them to me for, a few hours a night for about 4 hours, they're going to change. Those people are going to get along. And when they come in on Monday, they're going to be a whole different group of people, and they're going to be absolutely at a peak stake and in high performance.
I love that. And yeah, I can see it. So what was you was talking about the code that you have
Oh,
for my listeners?
yeah, sure, absolutely. So the code, they can just go to my website, which is Firewalk Adventures, firewalkadventures.com. Firewalk Adventures is all one word. Adventures is spelled with an S. And then on the top left-hand corner, once they're on the website, it says the Academy. Click on that. And then if they, if they say, okay, I want some more information, then my calendar's there. They can book an appointment with me. Everybody comes through me. No one comes to the Academy unless I make sure it's a good fit. And I'm going to tell you straight up, Francy, if people call me and I don't think it's a good fit for them, I'm going to tell them, because I don't want them to come to the Academy unless they're going to perform and go back and put this incredible, practice to use and change people's lives. So the code for that to give the discount is 6828. So let me write that on your doc here. So it's 6828. Yeah.
And I will make sure I will put it on the show notes.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So yeah, anything else you would like my listeners to know, and website and everything?
Yeah, I think the two most important times of our lives is the moment we're born and the moment we figure out why. I also believe that every human has two lives. And the second one starts when we realize we have only one. When I do my seminars, I'll close with this. I put a picture of a gentleman by the name of Eric Weinmeyer. And you can tell by the picture that he's standing at the top of Mount Everest. And so I'll talk about, whatever I'm going to talk about for a half hour or so. And then I'll finally say to my audience, hey, who here can tell me where my buddy Eric is standing? And, they get it. They go, Mount Everest. That's correct. And I want you to know something about Eric. He's climbed the 7 highest mountains on Earth, 7 continents, 7 mountains, 7 tallest mountains in the world. And he has reached the summit of every single mountain. Now, put him on a mountain bike. Got to see this boy ride a mountain bike, man. He can tear it up. Put him in a kayak. He can probably navigate any river on Earth. But there's something you need to know about Eric. And that is this. He's blind. So I don't want to hear it. And I take that to, why don't people get what they want in life? There's a story they tell themselves why they can't have it. And 99.9% of the time, they make up that story. If a man can climb the 7 highest mountains on this planet and he can do it blind, and I'm telling all your listeners right now, I hope this messes with your head. Get this limiting belief out of your head that you're not extraordinary, that you can't do whatever you want to do in life. Because Henry Ford said it, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. So when people come to my seminars, this is it's my job. My job is to encourage you. My job is to inspire you. And my job is to increase your self-belief, your self-confidence, and most importantly, your self-worth. So go do whatever it is you're being called to do.
Thank you so much for the last message. I know my listeners will appreciate it.
Good. Yeah. Well, it's been a pleasure to be here. I really appreciate it. Absolutely.
Thank you so much for your
time.
Sure.
Bring me back again. I'd love to do it.
I love it.
Cool.
Well, thank you so much for listening to another podcast episode. You can find my podcast on all major platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and, my YouTube channel as well. Like and subscribe. I hope you have a blessed day. Bye-bye.